At a corporate dinner, my cousin said loudly, "Let's all thank her for keeping the coffee flowing one day, she might even handle a real budget." I smiled, waited 9 years, secretly orchestrated a hostile audit, and when he found out he was being charged with wire fraud, he panicked and asked me to pull strings to make it disappear. I told him I'd do everything I could, then watched as the court seized everything he owned. I'm not the type to seek revenge. At least that's what I told myself back in 2016. But some things, you can't let go. It was December. Austin, Texas was cooling off for the winter, but the restaurant we were at, a fancy place downtown, with wine lists longer than the menu, was warm and packed. It was the company's annual holiday dinner. Everyone who mattered was there: managers, directors, even a couple of board members. I wasn't even supposed to be at the table with them. I was still just an assistant, handling last-minute reservations, seating changes, wine orders. But Ryan insisted I sit with him and his group. Said it would make me look good. Ryan Ellis, my cousin, family on my dad's side. We didn't grow up close. He was the popular one at family BBQs, the one who always had a new girlfriend or a new job story to tell. He was also the guy who could find a way to turn anything into a joke, especially at someone else's expense. That night, when the VP raised his glass to thank the team, I could already feel the nerves twist in my gut. I hoped Ryan would just keep his mouth shut. No such luck. Right after the VP finished, Ryan stood up, wobbling slightly from too much whiskey, and said in a voice loud enough for half the restaurant to hear, "Let's all thank her for keeping the coffee flowing one day, she might even handle a real budget." It was meant to be funny, but it wasn't. I felt the blood rush to my face. People laughed, some out of discomfort, some because they wanted to stay on Ryan's good side. The VP chuckled awkwardly. Even a couple of directors turned to look at me like, "Oh, that's who she is." I smiled. Forced, tight fake. Nodded like it didn't bother me. Inside I made a promise. One day, Ryan would learn I was a lot more than just the coffee girl. The first few years I just worked. No drama.
No gossip. No plotting.
Just work. I moved up slowly. Took on projects nobody wanted. Stayed late. Got my hands dirty in compliance, procurement, budgeting, while Ryan climbed the ladder faster. Not because he worked harder, but because he kissed the right asses. He landed a big title, Director of Regional Development. He got the nice office with the glass walls and the assistant who treated him like a king. He wore $500 shoes to work and bragged about his country club membership. Meanwhile, I was in the trenches, reading every line of every contract, following every penny through the system. By the time I hit year 5, I knew our company's financials better than most VPs. And I started noticing patterns, especially in Ryan's department. Consultants that got paid for services no one could explain. Invoices signed off with almost no supporting documents. Wire transfers going out to vendor accounts that weren't listed in any corporate directory. First, I didn't believe it. I thought maybe it was just bad paperwork. But the deeper I dug, the clearer it got. Ryan was stealing. Not petty theft either. Big numbers. Big enough to ruin him if anyone ever found out. I kept my mouth shut. I wasn't ready yet. Instead, I built a case. Piece by piece. Folder by folder. I kept copies of every suspicious invoice. Screenshotted wire transfers. Printed out vendor lists and highlighted the ghost names. I even started quietly checking Delaware corporation records, found the shell companies tied to Ryan's fake consultants. By 2024, I had a thick, heavy binder hidden in my closet. Labeled it tax documents in case anyone snooped. That summer, news broke inside the company. A new initiative to show shareholders the company's commitment to ethics. They were hiring a third-party audit firm to do random, deep audits of every department. No heads up.
No warnings.
Just real, raw audits. My moment had come. I didn't send everything. Just enough. An anonymous tip, mailed directly to the audit firm, with a thumb drive of samples and a simple message. You should look into Regional Development's consultant contracts from the past 5 years. It wasn't even signed. No name. No trace back to me. Then I waited. Patient. Calm. Cold. The audit team came in like a storm. Suits. Laptops.
No smiles.
They weren't there to play games. Ryan joked about it at first. Said it was some HR compliance crap. Said they'd be gone in a week. But when they started asking him for backup documentation, when they started calling vendors directly, when they started pulling his emails, the joke stopped. The day Ryan got called into that closed-door meeting, I saw him walking down the hallway. His face was white, sweat on his forehead, tie loosened, hands shaking. He didn't come back to his office after that. Security cleared out his desk. People whispered in the kitchen and halls. Still, no one knew the full story yet. Not until 2 weeks later when the news broke. Internal fraud. Millions stolen through fake consultant contracts. Charges being filed. Federal investigation pending. Ryan wasn't just fired. He was facing real prison time. He called me a week later. I didn't want to answer, but something made me pick up. His voice. I barely recognized it. He was begging me to talk to someone, to cover for him, to make it disappear. He cried, told me he had a wife, kids, told me he'd lose everything. I told him I'd see what I could do. I promised I'd try my best. I hung up, and I never lifted a damn finger. Because Ryan was right about one thing. One day I would handle a real budget. And that day it was his life on the ledger and the balance was due. For a while I thought that would be the end of it. Ryan would get arrested, tried, and sentenced. End of story. But it wasn't that clean. Real life never is. About a month after his indictment I started getting calls. Blocked numbers. Weird emails. Messages like, "You think you're safe? This isn't over." People talk. People find out. First I thought it was spam. Then one night, I caught someone following me when I left work. It wasn't obvious, no screeching tires or anything like that. Just a gray sedan 2 cars back making the same turns I made. When I pulled into a gas station and stayed there for 20 minutes, they finally pulled away. But it shook me. Bad. I changed my routes. Took different ways to work. Started looking over my shoulder. I even bought a security system for my apartment. A few weeks later it got worse. I got called into HR. They said there was an anonymous complaint against me. Accusations of tampering with financial records. Misuse of access. Total lies. But serious enough that they had to investigate. I sat there across from the HR director and a lawyer, and I realized exactly what was happening. Ryan or someone loyal to him was trying to drag me down with him. If they could muddy the waters enough, maybe his charges wouldn't look so bad. Maybe he could argue someone else had framed him. Maybe he'd shave some time off his sentence. It was a desperate, dirty move. And it almost worked. For a few weeks I lived in fear. Every day I went to work wondering if it would be my last. I barely ate, barely slept. But there was one thing Ryan didn't count on. I kept receipts. Everything I did, every audit, every report, every file, I kept clean records. I had backup copies, time-stamped, signed by supervisors, cross-checked and verified by third parties. When the internal review team dug into it, they found nothing on me. Not a single thing. They cleared me completely. But that investigation kicked up a lot of dirt on Ryan's mess. More fake vendors. More shell accounts. More fraud than even the feds had found at first. If he hadn't tried to drag me down, they might have never uncovered it. But now they had everything. And they stacked new charges on him. Bank fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. His possible sentence doubled. The final twist came from his wife Tara. Out of nowhere she called me. I didn't recognize the number. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up. She was crying, begging me to talk to the prosecutor. Begging me to say Ryan wasn't a bad guy. That he was a good father. That he deserved a second chance. I listened. Let her say everything she needed to say. And when she finally finished, I told her the truth. He's not a good man. He's the kind of man who stands up at a company dinner and makes a girl look like a joke. He's the kind of man who thought stealing from everyone was smart. He's the kind of man who tried to ruin me when he got caught. And he's the kind of man who finally got what he earned. She hung up without saying another word. After Tara hung up, I thought maybe it was finally over. I thought maybe Ryan would rot quietly while the courts did their work. But Ryan wasn't done trying to screw me over. Even from the bottom of his hole, 3 weeks before his trial date, I got served. Subpoena. Ryan's lawyer was trying to force me to testify not just about what I knew, but to paint me as a disgruntled family member, with a personal vendetta against him. They wanted to twist everything. Make it look like I had been out to get him from the start. Make it look like the fraud was somehow exaggerated because of me. If they could shake my credibility, maybe they could get a lighter sentence. Maybe even beat some of the charges. I sat in my tiny kitchen, staring at the papers. Hands shaking. Angry. Sick. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But courtrooms don't always care about right and wrong. It's about what you can prove. And who can tell the better story. For the first time in 9 years, I second-guessed everything. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe revenge wasn't worth it after all. Maybe it would blow back on me. But then I remembered. That night. The laughter. The way Ryan smirked when he humiliated me in front of people who mattered. The way he called me the coffee girl like I was disposable. And how he didn't just screw over the company. He screwed over every employee who trusted him. He screwed over every hard-working person who got smaller bonuses because he was stealing. He screwed over his own wife and kids by being greedy. No, I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after everything. I got a lawyer. A good one. Not a flashy TV lawyer, but a hard, mean guy who specialized in corporate cases. We spent hours preparing. He taught me how to answer questions without giving them anything extra. How to stay calm no matter how ugly it got. How to stick to the facts. Facts Ryan couldn't erase. Facts Ryan couldn't twist. The day I took the stand, Ryan was sitting right there at the defense table. He looked awful. Pale. Hair thinner. Suit 2 sizes too big. Eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept in weeks. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. Good. When they asked me questions, I stayed simple. Clean. Sharp. I didn't call him names. I didn't get emotional. I just told the truth. How I found the records. How the audit started. How the fraud was uncovered. Step by step. Piece by piece. No extra drama.
No exagerations.
Just the truth. And the truth was enough to kill him. At the end of my testimony, Ryan's lawyer tried one last move. Tried to rattle me. He said, "Isn't it true you've held a grudge against Mr. Ellis for nearly a decade? That you were embarrassed by him at a company dinner?" For the first time on the stand, I smiled. A real smile. I leaned into the microphone and said, "Yes, he embarrassed me, but you don't commit millions of dollars in wire fraud because someone holds a grudge. You commit fraud because you're a criminal." There was a pause in the courtroom, a silence so heavy you could hear a pin drop. The prosecutor smiled. The judge nodded. Ryan just slumped lower in his seat. Ryan's trial didn't drag out. After my testimony, after the audit firm's evidence, after the company's executives turned on him to save themselves, it was over fast. The jury came back in less than a day. Guilty. On every charge.
Wire fraud.
Bank fraud. Tax evasion. Conspiracy. When the judge read the verdict, Ryan didn't even flinch. It was like he wasn't even inside his own body anymore. A hollow shell. He was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison.
No parole.
No appeals that mattered. They seized everything he owned. His big house on the lake? Auctioned. The fancy cars? Gone. The country club membership? Terminated. His wife Tara took what little was left and moved out of state with the kids. Didn't even leave a forwarding address. For a while I thought maybe I'd feel happy, triumphant, satisfied. But here's the truth no one tells you about revenge. It costs something. Even when you win. I didn't lose my job. I didn't go to jail. I didn't end up in the papers like he did. But I lost something else. I lost a piece of my trust. I lost the part of me that used to believe hard work alone was enough. I lost nights of sleep. Relationships. Time I'll never get back. 9 years of waiting. 9 years of anger. 9 years of planning. When it was all over, I stood in my tiny living room, holding a copy of the court verdict, and I realized I won. But the person who started this 9 years ago, the girl at the company dinner, she was gone. She wasn't coming back. A few weeks after the sentencing, I got a letter. No return address. Messy handwriting. No real greeting. Just a single line. You finally handled a real budget. I hope it was worth it.
No signature.
But I knew who it was from. I read it once. Then I burned it. And I made myself a promise. No more looking back. No more wasted years. No more coffee girl. The next morning I applied for a new job. A better one. A bigger one. One that would never ever put me in the corner holding a coffee pot again. That's my story. Not proud. Not ashamed. Just finished. And if anyone out there ever wonders if quiet people remember, trust me. They do. And when the time is right, they serve revenge colder than anyone else ever could.